Okay. So here we have AB. And I already drew, so your first step is always to draw the right triangle and count the distance along the x-axis and the distance along the y-axis. So let's say, we'll make this easy and say we just want half. We want to find that coordinate that's halfway between, it puts line segment AB into 1/2. So that means I need to do along the x-axis, again, my length is 7, total length is 7. Along the y-axis, my total length is 4. And I'm going to multiply each by 1/2. Okay, so of course this gives me 4/2, so that's 2. So I'm going to count 2 units, or add 2 units from point A. And then 7/2 is 7 divided by 2, so that is 3.5 or 3.5. So point A, which is at -3, 2, I will add half of 7 is obviously 3.5, so I'm going to add 3.5 or 3.5 to -3, and half of 4 units is obviously 2, so I'm going to add 2 to my y value. So this is going to give me a positive half, or positive 0.5, 4. So this is the half, this represents half the line segment. So to plot this, it would be positive 1/2, 4. And if you notice, if I put that there, that approximately looks like half of line segment AB. So using those steps, we can also find the fractional distance of a line segment on the coordinate plane. Okay, the concept is still the same. The only difference is that what we have is that we have 2 number lines and 2 distances that we'll have to multiply. One being along the first number line being along the x-axis, the second number line being along the y-axis. So in our example here, we want to determine the coordinate of point P, that again is 2/5 the length from point G. Okay, so step number 1, we needed to find the length. Now to do that, what we're going to do is draw our right triangle so we can determine the length along the x-axis and then the length along the y-axis, and we can count for both. And you'll notice that along the x-axis I have a length of 10 units, and along the y-axis I have a length of 9 units. So I'm going to multiply both lengths by 2/5. Okay, now we just determined 2/5 of 10 is 4. So we'll need to count 4 units along the x-axis from G. But I also have to do the y-axis, and that is a total of 9. So 2/5 of 9 is 3 3/5, or as a decimal is 3.6. So from here, we can now add or you can, you can count along the x-axis from -4. G has a value, has a coordinate of -4, -6. So I can count 4 units from -4, or, as I've shown here, you can do -4 plus 4. And that, of course, is going to get me to 0. So that is the x value of this coordinate P. Then, along the y-axis, we start at -6. So -6 is right here. And I need to count or add 3 3/5, or 3.6. So when I add -6 plus 3.6, I will get a -2.4. So when I plot that point, 0, -2.4, okay, so that is where point P is, and that represents 2/5 of the total length from point G of line segment GH. Now, if you needed to put your answer in fractional form, which I know all of us love so much, we have 6, and we would have to subtract, I'm sorry, not subtract, we'd have to -6, but then we would have to add 3 3/5. Okay? So the first thing we would have to do is borrow 1 from 6 and make that 5, and 5/5, because I need something to subtract the fraction 3/5 from. So now that I have a common denominator and a fraction to subtract 3/5 from, 5 minus 3, so that is, of course, 2/5, and then -5 plus 3 will give me a -2. And if you do 2 divided by 5, you will get 0.4, which is the decimal form of that same answer. So let's try one more so I can to find the fractional distance on a number line. The first thing we're going to do is find the length of the line segment. So it says here the question is telling us to find the coordinate that is 2/5 from point T. Okay, so first we need to, like I said, first we're going to find total distance, or length, same thing, of ST. Okay, so S is at -5, T is at +5, so that is 10 units. Okay, so the total distance is 10 units. So we want to find the value that represents 2/5 of the total length. And to do that, we are going to multiply. Okay, we're going to take our total length of 10 and multiply it by 2/5. Put 10 over 1 and multiply straight across. So I get 20 over 5, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that's 4 units. 2/5 of the full length of 10 is 4 units, and the question told me from point T. So I'm going to start from point T, and I'm going to count 4 units. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that gives me, so the coordinate that represents 2/5 of 10 is at number 1 on the number line. So after we found out how many units is 2/5 of 10, our last step is to count or add or subtract from the coordinates of point T. Okay, so obviously we counted because T was at the end, so we counted 4 units to the left. I've also could have, again, since T is the end point, I had to do 5 minus 4, and that got me to 1. So that's how we find fractional distance on a number line. Those 3 steps. Find the total distance, multiply the total distance times the fraction that they're looking for, and then count that many units, or add or subtract, from the coordinate point indicated. Okay?